Well, same here. Thank you very much.
Tell us about that freezing cold morning in Bar City, Vermont, 7 years ago, when your life changed forever. It started with a call out to a house fire.
Yeah, the call first came out just before 6 in the morning. It was December 17th, 2005. Came in as an apartment fire with people trapped. As people were getting closer to the scene, the reports started coming in that there were kids trapped inside as well. When the first crews got there, it was a duplex. The apartment upstairs was the one occupied. That was also the one that was on fire. The one downstairs, although it was set up exactly as the one upstairs, was unoccupied at the time. The guys tried to make entry, weren't able to. As additional help showed up, we were able to make entry into the back of the apartment. We're forced out of the building 2 different times, and we finally made it in through a bedroom window on the 3rd attempt, and we were able to, we found an adult male there in the bedroom, able to get him out, and he's since recovered. As we went through the rest of the apartment, we found 3 girls huddled on the floor in their bedroom, a young boy on his bed in his bedroom, and then there was the mother of the family that also perished, was in the living room near the area of the origin of the fire. So sum total was that we had 4 kids and a mom that died in the fire.
Initially, you were able to bring the children out, but they couldn't be resuscitated. Later, to your dismay, that you found that the house actually had working smoke alarms that had failed to function in the house fire. You tested them later. What kind were they?
They were all ionization smoke alarms. As I said, the upstairs apartment was set up exactly as the downstairs apartment. So the police department got to the scene just before we did, and they reported to us hearing no smoke alarms sounding at all. When we got there weren't any smoke alarms sounding either. The officers tried to get into the fire apartment but weren't able to because the flames were so intense. But they were managed to get into the downstairs apartment, and what they were trying to do was to hear if they could hear any movement above them, so that when the fire department showed up, they could kind of indicate to us where we needed to go. What they couldn't stay in the downstairs apartment for very long because the smoke conditions in that apartment were also very bad, and even though the smoke alarms in that apartment weren't sounding. When the fire was over, all the alarms in the fire apartment were all burned up, but the ones in the downstairs apartment were all still intact. I tested all 3 of them after the fire was over, and all 3 of them tested fine, even though not one of them was sounding when that apartment was charged full of smoke.
Now, that horrible tragedy led you to the discovery of Adrian Butler's aquarium test. We've spoken about this many times before on ABC Coast FM, but can you tell us in a nutshell what the aquarium test sets out to do?
Well, basically what it does is you take a fish tank, it's a small box, and the reason you're using the fish tank is because you can see through the glass. Take a cushion from a couch, just a piece of it, and you put a low-temperature soldering iron into the cushion, so that what you're essentially doing is creating a smoldering fire, a low-temperature fire, which is the kind of fires that happen most dominantly at night. And we put an ionization smoke detector in there, and as the aquarium builds up a smoke, you can clearly see that the ionization smoke alarm is not sounding, even though it's in this small box full of smoke. And then we put a photoelectric smoke alarm in afterwards, and the photoelectric alarm goes off instantly every single time. With the test that we did, we let the cushion continue to burn and smolder until you almost couldn't see the detectors anymore. It was just so charged with this thick yellow smoke that you really could not hardly see the smoke detectors anymore. And it was about that time that the ionization smoke alarm finally did go off. But in a real-world fire, if you have a house that's got that kind of smoke in it, there's no way in the world anybody's going to get out of that.
So you'll be dead.
No doubt about it.
Berry City firefighters took the aquarium test one step further. So what did you do?
Right after the aquarium went out there, we started getting some feedback from different government agencies telling us that wasn't a scientific, that wasn't a real-world thing. So we went to an abandoned house, and we did the same thing in the abandoned house. We took a couch, and we created a smoldering fire within that couch. It had several different smoke detectors up, both photoelectrics and ionizations, and we had, I don't remember, 10 or so in 2 different rooms. And what we found was the same exact thing. The photoelectrics in the room with the couch went off very quickly, and then the photoelectrics in the next room went off next. And the ionization smoke alarms that we had in both of those rooms did go off, but it was an hour and 6 minutes into the test. And by the time that it did that, we had 3 firemen in the room, and you could only see 2 of them. The other one was obscured by all the smoke. It was at that point that the ionization smoke alarm first went off.
You're listening to ABC Coast FM. I'm speaking with a visiting firefighter from the States. His name is Captain Russ Ashe, and he's here to spread a very important message today. Captain Ashe, you were awarded a Medal of Honour for your bravery efforts in that Berry City house fire, but you've paid those children the ultimate tribute, really, with the work that you've gone on to do. You've committed to campaigning tirelessly to get people to switch over to photoelectric fire alarms. Why are they the best kind to fit out your home with?
The reason they are is because most fires that happen at night while people are sleeping begin as a smoldering fire. There's no way of knowing how long it's going to smolder. It could smolder for a couple of minutes. It could smolder for a couple of hours. Photoelectric smoke alarms are very good at picking up the types of smoke that is created by a smoldering fire. However, on the flip side, the type of smoke alarm that most people in the world have, the ionization type, those smoke alarms are very, very bad at picking up that kind of smoke. In fact, in many cases, they don't pick it up at all. So what happens is that as that smoldering fire in your home, let's say you drop a cigarette on your couch, for example, and it smoldered for a couple of hours. After a couple of hours, your whole home is going to be filled full of smoke. And then at some point, that smoldering fire is going to convert into a flaming fire where you're actually going to have flames. When that happens, then the ionization smoke alarms in the home will then sound. But by the time that happens, your house is already filled with smoke. You've already been breathing that smoke for a while, and now you got to get out of there. And you only have a couple of minutes, if that, at that point to do that. If you're like me and most everybody else in the world, you have children, and children do not wake up to the sound of a smoke alarm. So you're going to have to get up, go get your kids, and then get out. And you just don't have that kind of time when you're in an environment that's full of all this smoke, when that's been filling up your house for an hour or better. When what really should have happened is that cigarette on the couch, as it started creating smoke, your photoelectrics would go off. You'd get up, you'd see that your cigarette was burning your couch, take a glass of water and put it out. And in many cases, I'm not saying all cases, but in many cases, you might not even need to call the fire department.
What happened as a result of the tests that you did there in Berry City, where you went to that abandoned house and effectively started those smouldering fires? I mean, what was the outcome in terms of the kind of alarms that then the government legislated?
Well, after we did that, we invited a local news channel down, and we outfitted them in fire gear and FCBA, and they were there and did the test with us, and so they saw it firsthand and was able to put it on the news. That particular test, we gave up after over an hour of trying to get the ionizations to go off and never did. That news report, on top of what everything else that we'd been doing, caused Senator Vincent Aluzzi from Vermont to introduce a bill into the legislature to mandate photoelectric-only smoke alarms in all homes. The testimony lasted several months. We testified, UL testified, NFPA, and several other organizations testified. Deputy Chief out of Boston came down and helped out as well. The end result was that the state of Vermont passed a law that went into effect January 1st of 2009 that requires photoelectric-only smoke alarms in every home, at least one in every level.
What's the case in the rest of America?
The rest of America is state of Massachusetts also requires photoelectrics. There's several communities within the state of Ohio that is working towards that. The state of Ohio actually might pass that as a state. There are several communities out in California that have already passed it at the community level, not the state level. And those kinds of stories are starting to pick up steam throughout the country. In terms of the states passing legislation, there's only a few. Vermont was the first, but the momentum is gaining, but it seems to be gaining slow, but it is gaining.
Which is great to hear, but why do you think that residents of both Australia and America have been conned for so long into thinking that they're safe because they've got a working smoke alarm in their house, but it just doesn't happen to be the right one to save their life?
I think the reason is because there isn't anybody up on the mountain screaming at people. I've contended from the very beginning that I don't have to have the government tell me what to do. If I knew the differences in how they worked and how they didn't and what they were really going to do, then I would think most people would take care of that problem by myself. In America, I haven't watched the television here in Australia enough to know, but in America, you can't watch the television for more than an hour without seeing a commercial funded by the government talking about how you can't drink and drive. I mean, everybody and their grandmother knows you can't drink and drive, but yet we keep spending money on that very important message. But there isn't anything like that is being done to warn people about the types of smoke alarms. Not a single thing. So the reason I think people are unaware is because there isn't anybody standing on the mountain, powerful enough to get the message out to everybody.
Well, let's hope that your tour of Australia has helped take this one step further in the right direction, and that we do get more Australians installing photoelectric smoke alarms in their home. Captain Russell Ashe, keep up the good work, and it was great to meet you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.